The Dead Pool continues after the news.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sharon Stone.
You wouldn't hurt me. We're married.
Movie premiere.
Consider that a divorce.
Total Recall, Tuesday at 10:40.
6 pieces of chicken and 4 regular fries. The bargain bucket, just $5.99. Where? Today's KFC.
Whatever you're called, you'll feel better with Beechams.
Jim Davidson here. Watch my new video. There's no naughty words and no jokes about sex. Oh, all right, but it's definitely called The Truth, the Whole Truth. No, it is. Honest.
When Sarah first made vegetable soup, Jamie had somehow lost his appetite. But with the aroma of my Pillsbury dinner rolls baking up, it was remarkable how quickly he found it.
I think I'll make the desserts.
Which proves once again, all you need is a little oven freshness with my Pillsbury dinner rolls.
There, that's your mortgage sorted out. Now we can insure the property for you.
Isn't there some alternative?
Before handing over your insurance money to the Building Society, pick up the phone to Direct Line.
They could save us 20%.
For cheaper home insurance with a human voice, call Direct Line Insurance on 081 686 8877.
Whether it's the tastiest spaghetti bolognese or freshly frozen cannelloni, only Dolmio will do. Because every Dolmio recipe uses only the finest ingredients, all combined to create that delicious Dolmio taste. For great spaghetti bolognese or mouth-watering cannelloni, Dolmio is simply irresistible. Dolmio, only the best will do.
If you enjoy a healthy life, you'll want to enjoy what you eat, and you can with St. Ivel Gold. It has a fresh dairy taste, and because it's low in fat, it can help to keep you healthier too. More people enjoy St. Ivel Gold than any other low-fat spread. It's got to be good to be gold. Low-fat St. Ivel Gold.
If your dog enjoys tripe, here's a great way to give him the taste he loves. Pedigree Chum tripe mix. Juicy, tender tripe. All the meaty nourishment you'd expect from Pedigree Chum. Top breeder Anne Latimer agrees.
Well, ordinary tripe is just the ordinary tripe. But Pedigree Chum has all the vitamins, minerals in that's required to keep a dog fit and healthy. Myself, I think Pedigree Chum is the best dog food there is.
Pedigree Chum tripe mix.
What goes from London to Sheffield hourly, from morning to evening, from Monday to Friday. Welcome to the new Intercity Shuttle.
One British company is so successful that wherever it works, other British companies often work too. In the last 2 years alone, this company has gained contracts for 400 British businesses around the world, from Germany to Indonesia, all of which benefits this country. British Gas, a world-class energy company.
From London, you're watching Carlton. Now, today's national and international news from ITN.
From the headquarters of ITN, News at 10, with Trevor McDonald.
The Lords defeat the government again over rail privatisation. Crime is up, but the rate of increase is down. Fresh orange juice is about to be hit by VAT. And in disgrace and out of Europe, United fans arrested in Turkey. Good evening. The government's desperately trying tonight to get its rail privatisation bill back on track after it was ambushed in the Lords. Late this afternoon, the Lords unexpectedly threw out a government compromise which would have let British Rail bid for some, but not all, of the privatised rail services. It's an embarrassing setback for a controversial bill, which has troubled the government from the start. Straight over now to our political editor, Michael Brunson at Westminster.
Trevor, the very latest from Westminster is that the Commons have just voted by 301 votes to 260, that's a government majority of 41, to overturn the first of those Lords' votes which started all the problems earlier this afternoon. Their lordships had already voted some time ago to let British Rail bid to carry on running trains once the railways are privatised. Now, the government doesn't really want that to happen, but in a classic compromise, the Commons, which their lordships call another place, said yes last night to BR bidding a little, but that annoyed their lordships today.
And I do find it very surprising that when, after that debate, it moves to another place and the government then produces an amendment which, as my friend Lord Greatsell said, is by any standards an emasculation.
Their lordships went on to overturn the Commons' decision not once, but 3 times. The leader of the government side said immediately that they'd seek to reverse that, but Lord Wakeham was shouted at, a very unlordlike moment. And with delighted Labour politicians huddling outside as it became clear there'd have to be an instant special debate in the Commons to reverse what the Lords had done. The leader there, Tony Newton, confirmed that's what would happen. But then chaos ensued, with Labour playing for time by forcing divisions, and with one Labour member wearing the required top hat for MPs raising points of order during a division, asking plaintively, what are we voting on? There was a further delay over an I Spy Strangers motion, yet again punctuated by further top hattery. There were endless other points of order and angry shouting. And that included the shouting down of the reading of the Lords' decision they were supposed to be debating. And all this meant that the Transport Secretary was delayed for over an hour and a half before he could speak, and with opposition members still shouting at him.
I am not at all surprised that the other side doesn't wish to hear the arguments on this amendment. They never have done.
Well, it looks as though Mr. McGregor is going to go on to win all the various votes in the Commons. What happens now is that the whole business moves back again tonight to the Lords. Another vote there at about 11 o'clock this evening. But it is clear, because Lord Marsh and Lord Peyton, the mover of things down there, have already said so, that they will not seek to further delay things in the Lords. And so we are now on the way, I think, towards royal assent for the bill. This is Michael Brunson, live for News at 10 at Westminster.
Crime in England and Wales went up again last year to a new high of almost 6 million recorded cases. A report from the Audit Commission, the local authority watchdog, will say tomorrow that crime is now threatening to overwhelm the police, who should change their approach and begin targeting individual criminals. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Jennifer Nadel.
You're going to walk backwards with us and not cause any problems, and we'll put you in the back of the van.
Once again, recorded crime is up. In the last year, nearly 6 million offences were committed in England and Wales. While violent crime rose by 4%, domestic burglaries were up by 12% and robberies by 14%. There was some cause for encouragement. 8 police forces recorded overall falls in the level of crime, and the rate at which crime is increasing is down for the 3rd year running.
One can take no pleasure whatsoever from rising crime. I wouldn't take any pleasure if the figures were down 50%. But it is slightly encouraging that 2 years ago it was an 18% rise, last year 11%, this year 3.8%.
Crime has continued to rise most sharply in rural regions, while some metropolitan areas, including London and Merseyside, actually recorded a fall. But the police themselves are reluctant to draw too many conclusions from that.
This recorded crime is not a measurement of the effectiveness of police, so that when they go up, we shouldn't be too disheartened, and when they go down, we shouldn't be too happy.
With the Home Secretary speaking to prison governors in Blackpool and continuing to emphasise punishment ahead of prevention, Labour called for a change of direction.
Crime prevention is now more important than ever before, and unless we combine punishing the criminal with measures of crime prevention, we've no chance of fighting crime effectively.
The effectiveness of the police and, by implication, the government's law and order record will be called into question again tomorrow. A highly critical report from the Audit Commission is expected to warn that unless police detection methods improve, crime could spiral out of control. Jennifer Nadel, News at 10, Central London.
We'll be returning to the subject of crime for our special focus report later in News at 10. Total silence fell on Preston Crown Court today as video pictures were shown of 2-year-old James Bulger being led from a shopping centre to his death. The court also heard written evidence from James's mother about the moment he disappeared. Our North of England correspondent Jonathan Munro was in court.
Denise Bulger's statement recalls her panic when her son vanished from outside this butcher's shop last February. The statement, read in court by Henry Globe, one of the prosecuting team, was made just after his alleged abduction. In it, Mrs. Bulger, seen here at a press conference after his disappearance, says, "I turned round to look for James. He wasn't in the shop. I panicked," she said, "and ran out of the shop, but I couldn't see him. I started asking people if they'd seen him, but nobody had." Mrs. Bulger told police she'd only gone to the shopping centre with her sister-in-law for the ride. James liked to ride in the car, she said. Mrs. Bulger isn't expected to come to court to give evidence in person, but flowers were sent to her tonight, given to a police officer to pass on to her, with a card which read, "From a woman in a similar situation." The court also heard today that video cameras caught what the prosecution says is James's abduction in progress. Number 1 court fell into absolute silence as the jury watched images of 2 children, alleged to be the defendants, walking out of the centre with a toddler. They're seen by a number of cameras, at times holding the toddler's hand, at times walking ahead of him. Various versions of what the jury saw today have been transmitted on television just after James's disappearance. But Mr. Justice Morland has now ruled that there should be no further broadcasting of the tape until after the jury has brought in its verdicts. Jonathan Munro, News at 10 at Preston Crown Court.
The Northern Ireland Secretary Sir Patrick Mayhew and the Irish Foreign Minister Dick Spring said today that a political settlement in Northern Ireland was achievable, though they didn't say how. The two men met for 4 hours and their communique spoke of a yearning for peace after the sectarian bloodshed of the last 2 weeks. Our Ireland correspondent Tom Bradby reports from Belfast.
Peace rallies in Belfast are often poorly attended, but this afternoon thousands spent their lunch hour standing in the rain to protest against sectarianism and terror. The desire of the people here for peace is not in doubt. In the past 2 weeks, the violence has been relentless. Today's meeting of the Irish and British governments was due to be held last week, postponed because of the Shankill bomb. And because of the tension here, much of the meeting was taken up discussing security. But the two governments also talked about how they can push the political process forward. For months, officials have been quietly trying to put together a series of measures which all the constitutional parties here can sign up to. It's clear talks are still some way off.
I think it's generally understood that to go back round the table today with everybody present would not be a sensible way of proceeding and would be counterproductive. But there are, we all believe, what I call sensible, rational grounds for hoping.
But the difficulties are great, demonstrated by the arrival of Ian Paisley to protest at this meeting taking place. Mr. Paisley has said he will not talk to John Hume, while he continues to talk to Gerry Adams. And although the Hume-Adams initiative does appear stalled at the moment, both governments suggested it had made a substantial contribution.
The initiative which John Hume has taken was done in a very courageous manner, and I believe it has profoundly altered the climate of discussion. It has obviously touched a deep chord with many people and has raised expectation that peace can be achieved.
So, to get some momentum going, the British government has again been flagging the notion of more devolution and suggesting a local assembly would form an important part of an overall settlement. This wouldn't be new. The original Ulster Parliament was opened by King George V in 1932. Parliaments met until direct rule from Westminster was imposed in 1972. A new assembly could form the core of a package of measures designed to devolve powers here. It might have 85 seats, with members chosen by proportional representation, guaranteeing Catholics a voice. Devolved power would be given to committees looking after areas such as health, education, transport and housing. But to be acceptable to nationalists, devolution would have to be accompanied by significant cross-border institutions. The political process does seem to be moving slowly forward, but whatever progress is made, it is unlikely of itself to lead to peace. And that's why Mr. Hume is still saying that he will continue to pursue his initiative with Mr. Adams. For he argues that there will be no peace until the men of terror can be persuaded to put down their guns and start thinking in constitutional political terms. Tom Bradby, News at 10 in Belfast.
The government has let slip one of its budget measures 4 weeks early. After weeks of speculation about where VAT might fall, it turns out that one target will be freshly squeezed orange juice. It's likely to add 35 pence to a litre. It means that all fruit juices are now subject to VAT, whether freshly squeezed or not. Our political correspondent Glyn Mathias explains why it's been done.
It was slipped through without waiting for the budget, a tax on an increasingly popular drink, freshly squeezed orange juice. It's a business worth about £50 million a year. As a natural product, it's hitherto been exempt from VAT. Processed fruit juices are taxed as manufactured beverages. Now, because of legal disputes, the government has decided to tax all fruit juices in the same way. The fresh juice industry expects to be badly hit.
We feel it's going to dramatically reduce the total literage of the product sold because it's out of the reach of the buying public, and in turn the industry could well lose perhaps 500 jobs directly and maybe another 1,500 with subcontractors and indirectly.
From December the 1st, natural fruit juices will be subject to VAT at 17.5%. A 1.5 litre bottle of freshly squeezed orange juice is likely to go up from £2.89 to £3.39.
People are going to ask what is next on the government's VAT agenda after they move into freshly squeezed orange juice on top of the most unpopular policy of putting VAT on fuel.
Labour will stage a row on this issue in the Commons tomorrow, warning that the Chancellor plans further extensions of VAT in the budget at the end of the month. Glyn Mathias, News at 10, Westminster.
On News at 10 next, the victims of the fires sweeping across California. The human cost of the suffering. European Cup football, why the Canaries are singing tonight. And Focus on Britain reports on burglary. We talk to the victims and the culprits.
You could be making 500 to 1,500 a week, quite easily.
How challenging is your newspaper? The Independent. Free thinking with every issue.
Need your car repaired? Look for a company with an 0800 number. They're so keen to talk to you, they'll even pay for your call.
Tailor your windows to suit you. New WordPerfect 6.0. More windows to look through.
Is your newspaper only giving you one side of the story? The Independent. Free thinking with every issue.
Quickly fry 4 Sainsbury's chicken breasts in a pan. Meanwhile, peel and halve 8 ounces of shallots and put 1 tablespoon of olive oil in a casserole dish. When the chicken is just golden, transfer to the casserole, add the shallots, season with salt and pepper, and pour over 1 bottle of Sainsbury's passata. Now sprinkle on some chopped fresh thyme, keeping a little back for later. Then place the uncovered dish in a moderate oven. Now slice 1 yellow and 1 green pepper and count out about 12 pitted olives. Remove the casserole after 30 minutes, stir in the peppers and olives, and return to the oven for another half an hour. When ready, sprinkle over the remaining thyme and serve with Sainsbury's hot herb bread. Delicious.
Sainsbury's, everyone's favourite ingredient.
EMI Records brings you the Tchaikovsky Experience. Now you can enjoy 20 of Tchaikovsky's best-known pieces on one magnificent album. Music to bring you joy. music to make you cry. Enjoy the Tchaikovsky Experience, available now for the very first time.
It'd be easier to get into a packet of Colman's new garlic and herb sauce.
Sorry, no dogs.
Oh, a lot easier.
Who's writing your newspaper?
Are no longer enough.
The Independent. Free thinking with every issue.
Hollywood's real-life towering inferno is still burning fiercely tonight, consuming more houses in its path and blazing across acres of valuable real estate. Famous film stars who live in Malibu, north of Los Angeles, have been forced to leave their homes. Houses owned by Charles Bronson, Sean Penn and Bruce Willis have already been damaged or destroyed. ITN's Kevin Dunn reports from the United States.
For the second time in a week, fires raged across Southern California, consuming thousands of acres of woodland and destroying hundreds of homes. Again, the flames were fanned by savage winds, blowing hot and dry from the desert. They whipped up deadly embers, which showered over buildings, igniting them like torches. 5,000 firefighters struggled to save people's homes.
We're trying to save as many as we can. The problem is we can't keep up with all of them. The water supply won't let us keep up.
More than 7,000 people were evacuated, some against their will.
I cannot go in. I cannot get my husband out. I cannot have access to my loved ones, and I cannot protect my property. This is crazy.
Police at one roadblock drew guns to stop a homeowner who tried to return. For many, the fire took only minutes to destroy the belongings of a lifetime.
We didn't rush. We took a few things. We didn't have time to get many things, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and the house was gone within the hour.
The fight against the main blaze continued all day. More than 100 people were injured. The most seriously burned, a British screenplay writer who tried to rescue a cat. The blaze threatened to engulf the exclusive beach resort of Malibu, home of millionaires and movie stars. Many mansions were lost, and in areas the fire remains out of control. But firefighters believe they have gained the upper hand, though they're wary of claiming victory. Kevin Dunn, News at 10 in the United States.
The city of New York has a new mayor tonight. Voters chose the Republican Rudolph Giuliani by the narrowest of margins ahead of the city's first black mayor, David Dinkins. There were also Republican victories in New Jersey and Virginia. Here, the Health Secretary, Virginia Bottomley, said today that common sense should come before ideology in adoption cases. Age, race, and even weight of prospective parents won't be so important, and children are to be given a bigger say about what happens to them. Those over 12 will in future have to agree to any court order. ITN's Vernon Mann has the story.
Common sense is a key word in this first major overhaul of adoption proceedings in 20 years. The priority is children's happiness. So-called politically correct adoption placings should become a thing of the past.
We're heartily sick of cases where racial issues, ageism, fatism even, seems to have dominated the interests of the child. Adoption is about finding the best possible home for a child, and it's that has to be held in the front of people's minds when they're making the decisions.
So politically correct placements are out now, are they?
No place for politically correct decisions. It's all about what's the best home we can find for a child.
Children aged 12 and over will be able to have a say in their own adoption, and there will be a complaints procedure for couples like Jim and Roma Lawrence, who were told they were racially naive to want to adopt a coloured child. The White Paper's been generally welcomed by the opposition and by adoption agencies, with slight reservations, though.
But it's a pity that the government haven't said anything about the resources, additional resources that will be made available. But I think the general reaction to the White Paper will be a favourable one.
Race and culture will still be factors to be considered in adoption, but what should weigh most heavily, ministers say, is the ability of the adoptive parents to help and support the child through the challenges of life. Vernon Mann, News at 10, Westminster.
Other news, a former top official at the Ministry of Defence has been found guilty of taking £1.5 million in backhanders from overseas arms companies. 69-year-old Gordon Foxley will be sentenced in December. It's thought to be one of Britain's biggest corruption cases. The first inquest has opened, linking a death from Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease to a growth hormone. The illness is similar to the cattle brain disease, BSE. Patrick Baldwin's parents blame his death on a growth hormone he received as a teenager. And British Coal said today Calverton Colliery near Nottingham will close later this month. Calverton, which employs 640, was one of 12 mines supposedly reprieved earlier this year. Earlier in tonight's news at 10, we reported on the continuing rise in crime. The category of crime rising fastest is one of the most distressing, domestic burglary. It now accounts for a quarter of all recorded crime. For our focus report tonight, we've been looking at the scourge of burglary, the victims and the culprits. Our reporter is Jim Buchanan.
Not burglars, but police. In Warwickshire this week, detectives have been raiding dozens of homes in an anti-burglary drive and made more than 80 arrests. Jerry Allen is a former burglar. He spent 18 months in prison. He says he changed his ways after being burgled himself. But being a criminal was highly lucrative.
Well, depending how many times you went out, say in a week, you could be making 500 to 1,500 a week, quite easily.
Come in. Thank you.
In Oxford, detectives investigate yet another break-in.
And they've taken a stereo that was here, a sort of CD player.
On average, the chances of burglars being caught and convicted are just 20%, but police do have some successes. When goods are recovered, they end up in storerooms like this all over the country. But the police say burglary is not a crime against property, it's a crime against people. Brian preyed on people during 30 years of burglary. Now going straight, he says he used to take opportunities as they arose.
You know, I might be sitting having a drink and I just decide to go out and do something and just have a look about. Like other people, I have lots of bills to pay and got no employment. You know, I've got to find some way of paying the bills.
When you look at these houses down this street, how many do you think you could have broken into had you wanted to?
The ones I'm facing now, all of them.
Take a seat, will you?
In Watford, we introduced him to a couple who know all about what it's like to have their home broken into.
When you were doing it, how did you feel about the people who were burgling?
I often felt about the people, you know, but I didn't really think about them at the time.
Right at the back here, we can see ideal for an opportunist burglar.
A survey by police and the probation service in Hertfordshire has exploded many myths about burglaries. For example, they don't normally happen at night. The afternoon's the most vulnerable time, and simple measures could prevent most of them.
We found 30% of burglaries in our sample occurred through open doors and windows. If they'd been closed and locked, they may well not have suffered a burglary.
Although burglaries in England and Wales were up 12% last year, the police insist they haven't abandoned the fight against them.
Feel strong that the police are actually doing things. Don't judge it just by the number of people who are actually convicted. Judge it by the fact that the police usually get them. And I say to the people who actually commit burglars, you do it, we'll nick you. It's as simple as that.
I went out, come back and found my place turned over. And it's from that time that I decided not to do it again. I got back my own medicine in it, so to speak.
And while Jerry Allen insists he won't go back to crime, there are plenty of others for whom the temptation of a few moments' risk in exchange for potentially large rewards will always be irresistible. Jim Buchanan, News at 10, Oxford.
Soccer news. Manchester United are out of the European Cup. Their goalless draw in Turkey meant that Galatasaray won on away goals rule. All in all, an unhappy 24 hours for one of the greatest names in European soccer. Their fans went on the rampage last night in Istanbul. More than 100 were sent home before the match began, and 6 are being held tonight in Turkish police cells. ITN's Peter Staunton is in Istanbul.
Almost 150 fans missed the match, caught up in an isolated incident at their hotel. They were in police custody, waiting to be deported by kick-off time. As ever, drink had played a big part, but the police had rounded up innocent and guilty alike and taken them away. Today, hotel staff talked of their experience.
They drank so much Turkish beer and Turkish raki, and after they were crazy.
The vast majority of United fans, though, came in peace and steered clear of trouble, determined to enjoy the occasion, which is more than their team did in the cauldron of Galatasaray's stadium. A 3-3 draw in the first leg meant that the Reds had to win, but in a poor game, only Schmeichel saved them from another defeat. At the other end, the United strike force, led unusually by Giggs, never made an impression. This was the nearest they came to breaking through. Near the end, Cantona's fragile temper did break. He was sent off after the final whistle. And Brian Robson needed stitches and a head wound caused by a Turkish police officer as the teams went down the tunnel.
So a disappointing end to Manchester United's short-lived European campaign. For the Turkish supporters, though, only joy. They came in here 10 hours ago. They could be here for a very long time.
But when they finally took to the streets, Turkey's biggest ever football win was being celebrated in style. Peter Staunton, News at 10, Istanbul.
Norwich are through to the third round of the UEFA Cup in their first European campaign. They were 1 down at half-time against the mighty Bayern Munich, but Goss hit an equaliser just after the interval. 3-2 on aggregate for Norwich. In the Cup Winners' Cup, Aberdeen are out, going down 2-1 to Torino. Arsenal trounced Standard Liège 7-0, an amazing 10-0 on aggregate. In the UEFA Cup, Aston Villa went out to La Coruña, and Celtic went down to Sporting Lisbon. So a good night for Arsenal and Norwich, and that's News at 10 tonight. We're here again tomorrow. Good night.
Hello, good evening. There have been some heavy bursts of rain around today. In fact, they're still affecting parts of the north, but the main feature of the weather for most of us through tonight and the first few hours of tomorrow will be fog patches, causing quite a few problems, I think, for drivers early in the morning. The fog will slowly lift and gradually clear, and tomorrow promises to be a mostly dry day and a fairly mild one too. But as for the rest of tonight, well, still some outbreaks of rain around, mostly across Scotland and the north, drifting ever further north through the night. Elsewhere, well, 1 or 2 patches of drizzle, but most places dry, a lot of low cloud around, some mist and fog as well. So do take extra care on the roads tonight and for the first few hours tomorrow too, because it will take quite a while to clear. A grey start for many people, still some rain around in the north, odd spots of drizzle elsewhere, but the cloud and the fog will gradually lift and break up a little bit, so things looking a good deal brighter by the afternoon, even a little bit of sunshine around. And that sunshine helping to boost temperatures up to a fairly warm 13 or 14. 14 is about 57, and that's about 6 or 7 degrees warmer than it's been over the last few days. So it is going to feel a good deal better than it has done recently, so enjoy the warmer weather. Good night.
What would I like to ask? I'd just like some answers.
It'd be great to have a say.
But who do you talk to?
Well, talk to us when GMTV opens the airwaves to answer your questions, from medical queries to what life is like as a singing superstar. Our guest tomorrow, Barry Manilow.
Hi, I'm Barry Manilow. Wake up with me on GMTV.
In just a few moments, Mary Nightingale has a roundup of the day's news here in the Carlton region in London tonight. Then at 10:40, we continue the film, The Dead Pool.
We want your business to stay in touch.
Oh, yeah.
If you had a BT charge card, you could call from almost any phone here or abroad. You'll see the calls itemised on your business telephone bill. And charge card is free. For your application form, call us now on free phone 0800 800 800. BT. We want your business.
What goes from London to Bristol twice hourly, from morning to evening, from Monday to Friday. Welcome to the new Intercity Shuttle.
Let's have a sweet and sour tonight. With Uncle Ben's sweet and sour sauces, just brown some meat or chicken and pour the sauce. Full of crispy bamboo shoots and peppers, juicy tomatoes and pineapples. Serve with Uncle Ben's rice and it's ready in minutes.
Uncle Ben's. Perfect results every time.
Throughout evolution, mankind has played the mating game. Why do we long to reproduce when the odds seem so stacked against us? The reason is simple. Having children is the perfect excuse to use Sony's most advanced range of camcorders. Sony, why men really learn to reproduce.
Because it vacuums and washes your carpets deep down, new Vax 8100 SX is the upright that makes more downright sense.
New Lynx Tempest. Added electricity.
Last year, Kwik-Fit met the needs of over 4 million motorists. Whether replacing tyres, exhausts, or fitting child safety seats, you can't get better than a Kwik-Fit fitter. Now Kwik-Fit has a new team member, a highly trained brake specialist. Qualified to work on virtually every make and model of car, they know your braking system inside out.
We've called the service Brake Safe. It offers the highest standards of workmanship. It's available 7 days a week, and I know it's the most comprehensive brake repair service in Britain today.
Brake Safe. Yet another good reason for stopping at Kwik-Fit.
What is your wish?
I wish I had 10,000 chances to win up to £10,000 instantly.
You do, with the new Tetley Instant Win promotion.
Yo!
What goes up must come down. Super Fresco makes it easy by Graham and Brown. Here's a sight that's always appealed under the arches in Macclesfield. All of the bumps in Stoke-on-Trent. You wonder where the rough patch went. Going up in Aberdeen, the best ceiling you've ever seen. In box and beds, in Lynx and Lancs, they're awake and saying thanks. Super Fresco makes it easy by Graham and Brown.
We want your business to get more from communications. To find out more, call us now on free phone 0800 800 800 BT.
Good evening, I'm Mary Nightingale. This is London Tonight. First, 6 prisoners are on the run in the capital tonight after they hijacked the coach that was transporting them. They threatened police guards with a knife and escaped in Brixton, leaving the officers handcuffed to the coach. Paul Wandless reports.
The 6 remand prisoners were on their way from Lewes Jail in East Sussex to face drugs charges at a court 20 miles away. But once inside the private hire coach used to transport them, one of the prisoners held up the driver with a knife. He was forced to take the prisoners to London. After making their guards remove their handcuffs, the prisoners got out of the coach at this junction in Brixton. 4 of them made off on foot and the 2 others hailed a taxi. The Prison Officers Association are not surprised by today's escape. They want access to more high-security type vans.
The kind of coaches that we use are those which would have taken our school kids to school this morning, that take normal people to work, people to football matches and so on. They are conventional coaches. They are not built to transfer dangerous prisoners around the country.
Meanwhile, the governor of Lewes Prison has launched an inquiry into the escape. This is Paul Wandless for London Tonight.
In other news, a workman was buried under rubble after a roof he was renovating caved in. It took the emergency services more than an hour to free him. Sally Arthey reports.
Up and off to the London hospital in Whitechapel. Inside the air ambulance, a workman pulled from the wreckage of the house he'd been renovating in Farnborough. He'd been trapped for more than an hour under tons of timber and brick while emergency crews tried to rescue him.
It took about an hour to release the chap. He was trapped by his legs and general other injuries, but it took a long time to ensure that the building wouldn't collapse on top of the fire brigade and the ambulance personnel who were working inside the building.
Another man was also hurt. He had minor injuries. They'd been underpinning these homes when they collapsed. The centre wall had been propped up. It seems the props gave way. It's not clear why. An investigation has now been launched. This is Sally Arthey for London Tonight.
A 27-year-old man has been arrested after a man was shot 9 times in the legs. That heads our look at other news tonight. The kneecapping took place on Monday night at Penge in South London. The 24-year-old man was shot when he opened his front door. His girlfriend and 2 children aged 1 and 3 were also in the house at the time. Surrey Council is taking the government to court to try and stop plans to expand parts of the M25 to 14 lanes. The council is asking the High Court to examine the impact parallel link roads would have on the environment. The Football Association has fined Tottenham £25,000 for poaching manager Ossie Ardiles from West Bromwich Albion. It's a record sum for the offence. Tottenham are considering an appeal. Meanwhile, Ardiles today signed Mickey Hazard from Swindon for a fee of £60,000. A councillor who sat on his local housing committee was in court today charged with unlawfully trying to evict his pregnant tenant. He dumped her belongings on the village green. Simon Cumbers has that story.
This is the face of John O'Connell, local councillor and former burglar who this afternoon admitted trying to pervert the course of justice. O'Connell, on the housing committee of Spelthorne Borough Council in Staines, was accused of unlawfully evicting a pregnant young mother and her baby daughter. The court heard that the heartless councillor ended a 6-month rent battle with his unemployed tenant Michelle Cranley by clearing her flat of her belongings and dumping them on the village green. Earlier, he'd changed the locks and cut off the electricity and water supplies. Then, facing legal action, O'Connell tried to get Miss Cranley's boyfriend to tell lies on his behalf. Today, he admitted perverting the course of justice, but denied the unlawful eviction charge. His plea was accepted to save court time, but the prosecution said that, as far as it was concerned, he had unlawfully evicted his tenant. The charge remains on file. This is Simon Cumbers for London Tonight.
Now, love him or hate him, Barry Manilow has sold more than 50 million records across the world. Today, he was in the capital to announce a slight change of career. Barry's #1 fan, our entertainment correspondent, Karen Keating, joined the screaming masses waiting to see him.
Commercially hot, forever uncool, Barry Manilow arrived in London today to launch his debut musical Copacabana, What Else?, which opens in Britain early next year.
I've had a love affair with the British audiences, for 20 years now. And this is a perfect place for us to launch a Broadway-style musical.
How involved are you going to get in the show?
As involved as they'll allow me to get. I will be sewing the costumes if I can. I mean, that's how committed I am to this.
Now, you've got Gary Wilmot in the lead role, but what about Lola?
Well, we're looking for Lola. We're looking for a young Judy Garland who can sing and dance and be innocent and ambitious at the same time.
Are you holding auditions at the moment for that?
Yeah, this week.
Well, auditions are over for Gary Wilmot, who met the songwriter for the first time this morning.
A joy, absolute joy. What can I say? There's a man who's played for the best, Bette Midler, you name him, he's played for them. And there he was playing for little old me. I felt quite chuffed.
In central London, this is Karen Keating for London Tonight.
Well, now, some of the region's First Division football results this evening. Millwall ended their away game doldrums by demolishing Nottingham Forest with a 3-1 victory. It's the Lions' first away win of the season. Southend were also on form tonight, winning 2-0 against Watford. Well, finally, a tale of puppy love. A police dog called Dynasty has lived up to her name, giving birth to the Met's largest ever litter. She's just had 14 puppies. Once they're old enough, 5 of the German Shepherds will be trained as police dogs, and the other 9 have been found homes. Well, that's about all for this evening. On tomorrow's edition of London Tonight, we'll bring you all the top stories in news, sport and entertainment, of course, for London and the South East. And it's double trouble as Hollywood superstar Kevin Kline jets his way onto London Tonight at 6.
You're a very handsome man. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, meanwhile, we're back first thing in the morning with bulletins in GMTV from 6:15. Until then, good night.
Hello, good evening. Well, you must have noticed the warmth in the temperatures compared to the days of late. That's all due to the southeasterly breeze bringing milder air from the continent. Of course, that brings fog overnight, and that's certainly the case here in the southeast. It is mild, but rather murky, that fog fairly widespread, certainly by tomorrow morning. So if you have got a late drive tonight, or indeed first thing in the morning, take care on the roads. That fog is expected to clear only slowly during tomorrow morning, but by the afternoon, it's going to be much brighter, and most of us should see a few glimpses of the sunshine. That will help the temperatures. They're going to vary from around 12 degrees to 14 degrees Celsius. That's up to 57 Fahrenheit, just a light breeze from the southeast. I'll leave you with a quick look at tomorrow's summary. In the meantime, good night.
Date rape. When does no mean no? Are young men being dragged unfairly through the courts? Or is there a backlash against women who speak out? The Big Story talks exclusively to the student whose allegation of date rape was rejected by a Norwich court this week. That's The Big Story, 7:30 tomorrow on ITV.
Now we continue The Dead Pool.